everyone. I'm Lauren Conlin. Welcome to Pop Crime TV's The Outlier podcast. Today, I'm going to be discussing the tragic case of Sandra Birchmore. That's the sweet girl that I have a photo of right here if you're watching on YouTube. But I'm not going to really get into, I guess, the details and the depths of what happened to her, because I think many of us are familiar with that. And if you're not, I've done a couple episodes on Sandra Birchmore's story, and I will actually have those linked out in the episode notes as well. But I will give a quick rundown in just a minute. But what I want to focus on today is Matthew Farwell, the ex-disgraced Stoughton police officer that's been charged in her death and who is still sitting in federal jail almost a year later, and who has not attended any hearing since he was arrested. He has not filed any type of motion since he was arrested. Now, we are coming up on the year mark. Matthew Farwell was arrested on August 28th, 2024, and he has been sitting in a federal jail ever since. He has not attended one court appearance, and his team has not filed any type of motion. Now, let me tell you why this is so strange. This is a federal case. He was a police officer. The feds had to step in and take over the investigation and subsequently the arrest. And federal cases, I'm sure many of you are aware, the average time from arrest to trial is about 6 to 9 months. So you can see why this is a little funny. I have thoughts. I have a few thoughts. I mean, I think the biggest question here is Matthew Farwell singing? Is he disclosing to the feds who did what, and this tangled web of grooming Sandra Birchmore, what it actually entailed? Because again, if you are familiar with this case, Matthew Farwell is accused of murdering her. However, there were other police officers involved in grooming Sandra Birchmore, including Matthew Farwell's twin brother, William. And of course, there is their supervisor, Robert Devine, Josh Heel. And actually, these men are also mentioned in the 2022 civil suit that was brought forth by Sandra's aunt, Darlene Smith. And they actually decided to postpone this civil suit until the criminal case was resolved. So, a little bit more on that later. But I think, again, the questions I have are Matthew Farwell. Is he trying to get a deal? Is he trying to not go to trial here? Because the death penalty is on the table, and he has acquired a death penalty lawyer as well. And I think that, if I had to guess, I would say he's working something out where he is talking possibly. So the death penalty is off the table. But the other thing, and it's could be simpler. It could be very simple. I mean, I don't know, but he is sitting in a federal jail in Rhode Island. And this federal jail, it's in Central Falls, Rhode Island, and that's about 40 minutes from the Canton, Stoughton area. So if his family still lives there, his wife and kids, there's a possibility that he's just really comfortable there and they can kind of go visit him very, very easily. If he goes to trial and he's convicted and he's sent off to another federal prison, I mean, that could be pretty much anywhere. So who knows? Who knows? But we're going to get into a few other things about Matthew's brother, his twin brother, William Farwell, who also was alleged to have a sexual relationship with Sandra. And supposedly he cut things off with her when she approached him and his family at some barbecue or picnic, and he blocked her, but they still continued to have a relationship after that through texting or sexting, I guess. And again, he was said to have done this while he was on duty. So also, I mean, I think this goes without saying, if you know this case, you know that he was decertified as a police officer. And that was in 2022, and he moved his family to New Mexico. Now, just a little spiel, I guess, that I put together about Sandra for those of you who really are new here. It'll just take me a few minutes. So if you already know the story, just bear with me. But my heart just breaks for her. It breaks for her and for her unborn child. It breaks into a million pieces. But with that being said, here's the story. On February 4th, 2021, 23-year-old Sandra Birchmore, who was a pregnant teacher's aide, was found dead in her bedroom in Canton, Massachusetts, with a duffel bag strap around her neck. Now, this was initially ruled a suicide by investigators from the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office and the police. And now, of course, federal authorities say overwhelming evidence suggests that Birchmore was, in fact, red rummed. And the prime suspect, Matthew Farwell, is a detective who was allegedly grooming her for years. And now he is behind bars awaiting trial for her red rum. So Sandra Birchmore was really excited about her future. On what investigators believe was her last day alive, she was doing planning for a newborn photo session. She was arranging care for her 2 cats, who, by the way, she allegedly got from Josh Heel, who worked animal control in Stoughton, again, had a sexual relationship with her and is also named on the civil suit. And she was doing laundry while she was awaiting for Stoughton police detective Matthew Farwell to visit her. So Matthew Farwell was a married man, a very powerful union official, and at the time, he was believed to be the father of Sandra Birchmore's baby. Now, it came out recently through DNA testing that he was not the father, but that doesn't matter. His motive, still the same. He thought he was the father. Now, this is also a very, very sick part. Matthew Farwell, his own wife, was giving birth the very same night that he stopped by Sandra Birchmore's apartment. Text messages also reveal that he once told Birchmore that he wished she would die. And this was as she kind of pressed him about being more involved in her pregnancy and her life. So on February 1st, 2021, during a blizzard that dumped a foot of snow on Boston's South Shore, Farwell texted Birchmore that he wanted to stop by her place. Security footage captured her using an ice scraper outside her apartment. And at 9:10 p.m., around there, she texted Matt Farwell that her door was open and he could come in. And that was her final message. So 4 minutes later, Farwell arrived, and it's 2021, so we're still kind of in COVID era. So, I mean, I guess conveniently for him, because he could really have this excuse to cover up his face. So he arrived, he was wearing a COVID mask and a hoodie pulled over his head. And 20 minutes later, he left. And he drove straight to a hospital where his wife was delivering their 3rd child. And Sandra Birchmore's body was discovered days later after a well-being check was requested when she failed to show up for work. Now, federal investigators, they allege that Farwell, he used his law enforcement expertise, which, makes sense, and staged Sandra Birchmore's death to look like a suicide. They say that he strangled her and he moved her body, and he tied the duffel bag strap to a closet door to cover his tracks. So Farwell was the last person to see her alive, but he was never, ever seriously investigated by local authorities, despite multiple tips about his long history with Sandra Birchmore, which, by the way, began when she was a teenager in the Stoughton Police Explorers program. And she also lost her virginity to him as well. And, it is really disturbing that police never investigated Matt Farwell, which is why I still believe that there could be more people, quote unquote, involved in this. And when I say involved, I mean, I think people knew about this. I think there were people in Matt Farwell's inner circle who agreed that Sandra Birchmore was a liability and she had to go. And maybe Maybe they didn't physically help Farwell with her red rum. However, I think that we might see text messages about this one day, or we might see or hear something where Farwell comes out and says, yeah, my circle here agreed that this was the best thing to do, and they gave me tips on how to do it. They told me what to do. I mean, again, I am speculating here, but I would believe it. So again, I brought up the fact that a civil lawsuit filed by her family claims that Farwell groomed her starting at age 15 and even committed statutory rape, which is a crime in Massachusetts. And again, last August, the FBI arrested Farwell, and it was very dramatic here because, of course, it involves the police and a huge grooming scandal. And prosecutors say that he silenced her permanently to hide years of alleged abuse, and also the fact that he thought she was pregnant with his unborn baby. Now, I think I've mentioned this on other podcasts before, but this case does have very eerie parallels to the Karen Reed case, which involved the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe, with overlapping investigators and more allegations of alleged misconduct. And the Norfolk DA's office, again, who quickly ruled Sandra Birchmore's death as a suicide, included figures like State Police Lieutenant John Fanning, who so quickly said, nope, this is a suicide. I am certain. And he was also disciplined in the Reed case for unprofessional conduct. Now, her family, Sandra Birchmore's family, they do allege a broader scheme of grooming by Farwell, Matthew Farwell, and as I mentioned, his twin brother William, another Stoughton police officer, Robert Devine, as well as the town's animal control officer and Birchmore's army recruiter, Josh Heel. So I mentioned that Matt Farwell has been held in federal custody without bail for nearly a year. And he didn't even try to get bail. He didn't even try. And I mean, the next hearing for Matt Farwell at this point is scheduled for October 6th. And he pushed back his August hearing. And I'm going to go through a discovery motion for you all so you can see what's going on. And the fact that, again, he doesn't seem to be doing anything. There doesn't seem to be any type of urgency here, which is really perplexing. So let's go through just some of the key players really quickly. Again, besides Matt Farwell, William Farwell, Matt Farwell's twin brother, former Stoughton police officer who joined the department in 2017, and he was accused in 2022 in the internal affairs investigation and the family's lawsuit of having an inappropriate sexual relationship with Birchmore, during her time in the Explorers program. And he lied about it during the probe. He resigned, and then he was decertified by the Massachusetts Peace Officer Standards and Training Post-Commission in September of 2024. Then we have Robert Devine. He's a former Stoughton deputy chief and supervisor in the Explorers program, and he was named in the family's lawsuit for allegedly SAing Sandra Birchmore during her participation in the program. He retired amid the scandal, and as of July of 2025, he was listed as, quote, not certified by the Post Commission, with ongoing proceedings, including a closed-door hearing to determine if he could retain certification. And then we have Josh Heel, a former Stoughton animal control, considered a law enforcement role, and later an Abington police officer. A 2022 internal affairs report found that he had a consensual sexual encounter with Birchmore as an adult, but at his workplace, and lied about it during the investigation. As of July of 2025, the Post Commission was deciding on his decertification, though his certification had expired, and he claims he has no interest in continuing in law enforcement anymore. Okay, he has another hearing at the end of August, and the last hearing that he had, I was shocked. His attorneys really were saying that he just wants to move on with his life. He just wants privacy. He wants to be done with this. Well, too bad. That's what I say. So I'm going to quickly share with you all The latest filing from July 29th, I believe, in Matthew Farwell's case. Let me just pull this up. You guys know it takes me a minute to find what I'm looking for. I'm so bad at this. Oh my goodness. Right. So this is the joint interim status report, and this was filed on 7/31/2025. And I'll go through this just because I find it very interesting. Look at this. Okay, the government produced automatic discovery on September 25th. This is basically a month after he was arrested, 2024. Additional discovery was produced by the government on the following dates: September 24th, 2024, October 1st, October 18th, December 12th, all 2024. Now we move into 2025, January 2nd, January 10th, January 13th, January 28th, March 5th, March 11th, March 27th, April 15th, and July 15th. Defendant has not yet produced any discovery to the government. The government has requested reciprocal discovery, and the government has provided responsive documents to defense discovery requests. The government recently produced additional discovery. Defense is continuing to review discovery and expects to send an additional request for discovery in the next several weeks. The parties anticipate being able to discuss and address those discovery requests without court intervention, but will seek a hearing date should conflicts arise. Okay, well, when? The parties have negotiated a filter protocol for the review and filtering of potentially privileged material, and they anticipate that given the parameters of this protocol and the volume of the material, the filter will be complete and filtered materials provided to the prosecution team by October of 2025. And that right now is when the next hearing is scheduled. And I gotta say, I mean, I'm thinking that there's no way the judge will let them postpone yet another hearing, but I mean, I guess we'll see. Timing of any additional discovery to be produced. The government has produced voluminous discovery that, in its view, goes beyond its obligations under the federal and local rules. The government is continuing to review additional discovery and will produce those materials on a rolling basis. As the government obtains additional Rule 16 discovery, it will provide to defendant pursuant to Local Rule 116.7. Defendant is still reviewing the materials thus far and has made additional discovery requests. The defense anticipates making additional discovery requests in the next several weeks as it finishes its review of newly produced materials. Like I said, this was filed July 29th. There have been no requests made since then. Protective orders. The government filed a motion for a protective order with the defendant's assent, and a protective order was entered by the court on September 9th, 2024. Pretrial motions. Again, the defendant is reviewing the discovery materials and evaluating the merits of any motions. At this time, the parties do not request a motions deadline or a trial date because the parties are continuing to confer regarding discovery, a filter review, the recent appointment of successor defense counsel, and other issues that will impact the timing of a trial on this matter. I don't necessarily buy all of that, although I mentioned that he did add a lawyer by the name of, let me pull that up. He did enter a lawyer recently in June of 2025 by the name of Kimberly C. Stevens. She is an assistant federal public defender, and she is a death penalty lawyer. So, I mean, that part's true, of course. But again, I think this is just sort of the discovery is an excuse for them to postpone and kick the can down the road, so to speak. Timing of expert witnesses' disclosures. Should expert testimony prove necessary, The government agrees to make the expert witness disclosures 90 days before trial. The defendant agrees to make reciprocal disclosures 60 days before trial. And the government agrees to make disclosures regarding rebuttal experts, if any, 30 days before trial. So I'm thinking that maybe they'll use Dr. Michael Bodden, who actually was hired by Birchmore's family at one point, and he determined her death to be a homicide over a suicide. Then there's the Speedy Trial Act calculation. The 70-day period specified in 18 U.S.C. 3161 C1 commenced on August 28, 2024. The court excluded all time between August 30th, 2024 and August 4th, 2025. Okay. Timing of an interim status conference. The parties request that the court cancel currently scheduled interim status conference on August 4th, 2025, and convene a further interim status conference in approximately 60 days, or a date thereafter that is convenient for the court. The parties ask the court to exclude the period until that conference under 18 U.S.C. 3161 H7 in order that the defendant may have adequate time to review discovery. The defendant agrees to exclude the time between August 4th and the date of the interim status conference from the speedy trial calculation. Respectfully submitted this 31st day of July 2025. So they're saying throughout the course of this motion that he is essentially waiving his right to a speedy trial here. Why? I don't know yet. I really don't know. I have been speculating a lot, but sometimes I don't like to speculate. However, I go back and forth. I go back and forth with the fact that he could be singing, squealing, but would he implicate his own twin brother to save his life? You know, I think it's easier for him to sort of snitch on Robert Devine, Josh Heel, but his brother, I don't know. Now, speaking of his brother was, again, decertified, kicked off the department, and he moved his family to New Mexico. And in January of 2025, he was arrested. And, you know, he's also named in this wrongful death suit. And he's also got, you know, a lot of legal troubles ahead of him. And I cannot imagine that his home life is very pleasant right now, as this is a very public case. His brother is pretty much facing a death sentence here. And I did a FOIA request to the Rio Rancho, New Mexico Police Department, sort of just get an idea of what happened here. And in no way do I want to sort of blast his family, his wife and kids, because, you know, they are just innocent bystanders in all of this. But I think that what happened is very concerning. So when I requested this, and by the way, I think that there was also there was this affidavit and the police report in the Facebook group, the Justice for Sandra Birchmore Facebook group. However, when I received it from Rio Rancho, there seemed to be a lot less redacted areas in the one that I received over the one that was in the Facebook group. So just out of respect for William Farwell's wife and kids, I'm not going to put this up on the screen. But again, I am concerned here. This guy does seem like he could be spiraling, and his wife and kids could be getting the brunt of it here. And I'm not making any type of accusations or anything, but just let me read to you this police report. And, I'll probably just say blank for some of the names, because I'm certain that some of them are minors as well. So the narrative here is, and by the way, I have to say the city of Rio Rancho, I mean, this is a very detailed incident report. I mean, talk about crossing every T and dotting every I. They did it, let me tell you. Synopsis: on 1/16/2025, at approximately 1:43 a.m., I responded to his address in New Mexico. in reference to a domestic in progress call. Mr. William Farwell Sr. was arrested for criminal damage to property of a household member. On 1/16/2025 at approximately 1:43 a.m., I responded to blank blank drive in New Mexico in reference to a domestic in progress call. Call notes read that a male is yelling and breaking things in the home. While the calling party, identified as his wife, was talking to dispatch services, the call taker could hear her saying, quote, "Please don't hurt XYZ." And that was one of her children's names. And "I'm not leaving him alone with you." Upon arrival, his wife met officers at the front door and let them in, telling officers where her husband, identified as William Farwell Sr., was located in the residence. Officers entered the residence and observed the house in disarray. Mail, couch cushions, and other items were thrown around the kitchen and living room floor. I observed a smashed plant pot in the living room and a smashed picture frame on the floor as well. I spoke to Farwell's wife and her daughter, identified as another daughter in another area of the home. She stated that William wanted to go to the local brew house with some friends. William returned home and was extremely intoxicated. Everyone in the household went to sleep, but William stayed awake and was in the living room. Wife stated there was no argument or domestic situation between William and her. Wife stated when William gets drunk, he's angry at the world and likes to break things in the house. She stated she was asleep in her room when one of her kids texted her saying, "I think dad is mad and breaking things in the living room." She got up and heard something break. She walked out of her room where she met the child that sent this text message in the hallway. Both of them walked out into the living room and observed William yelling and throwing things. The child told William he needed to stop, which made him very mad. He told the child to get out of the house. He then walked up to the child and nudged her toward the front door. Wife told William to stop and leave child alone. William stopped his action and stormed back into the kitchen. Then wife called 911. Wife said she called 911 just to get William to stop breaking things in the house. She also stated she was not concerned about any of the broken items. Now, the police officer said he spoke to William, who declined to make any statement about the incident due to the totality of circumstances with the initial call notes, the observations of the house being in disarray, broken household items observed, and statements made by child and wife. It is reasonable to believe that wife felt intimidated, harassed, and annoyed by William breaking items in the home. I arrested William for the criminal damage to the property of a household member, which enabled William to be removed from the home and separated from the family. Now, the child requested not to file charges for battery, and she signed a waiver of prosecution form. Wife also denied a domestic violence packet and refused officers to photo document the damages. Then he transported William to Sandoval County Detention Center, where he was booked without incident. And a copy of this report was forwarded to Children, Youth, and Families Division to follow up with the family. So that is what happened essentially back in January. So his wife and kid declined to press battery and DV charges. I get it. I totally get it. However, I just hope that this doesn't escalate, because it sounds like this isn't a one-off situation, although I wish it was. I just don't think that's the case. And in the FOIA, the whole package that was sent over, you can see where his child signed the anti-prosecution waiver for battery. And, you know, it is still a misdemeanor in New Mexico, battery, but you could get up to 6 months to a year in jail. Pair that with the DV charges. I mean, you know, it's a big deal. So that's pretty much what's going on right now when it comes to Matt and William Farwell and their lives and their cases. And I know that justice is not swift. It never is. However, I really, truly hope that the October 6th hearing does not get postponed. We can move forward with discovery and finally set a trial date. All right, guys. That's it for now. I'll do a follow-up episode, of course. I seem to be covering a lot of these Boston cases on Sunday. So if you like this, drop me a line, drop me a note, tell me you like it, and I'll keep it up. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe to Pop Crime TV if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening, please leave me a review on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen. I so appreciate you all, and I'll be back with another episode this week.